Why do rich people think they're better than poor people? Like, genuinely, why do they think that? Well, here's a crazy thing I just read that explains at least a part of that. Now, there's a book called Domination and the Arts of Resistance. And in this book, it talks about the three social scripts under a system of domination. So a system of domination is whenever one person has power over another person. So this might look like a job, right, where you've got a boss and an employee. It might look like slavery, where there's like a master and a slave. It might look like feudalism, where there's like a landlord and a serf, that sort of thing. So these are the kinds of situations that I'm talking about, systems of domination, where there's a clear power dynamic. Now, in a situation like this, there can never be true honesty, vulnerability, or trust, because the person with less power always has to fear retribution from the person with power if the person with power hears something that they don't like. So you always have to be aware of that. So at some point, the oppressed people always have to be careful with the truth, right? And so there's always some amount of lying that has to happen, because you could be punished if you're fully honest, right? It's just a distrustful situation anytime there's a system of domination. So the first script is between the oppressor and the oppressed. It's how they talk to each other, and there's some amount of lying that goes on there, right? And then the second script is how the rich people talk amongst themselves. And the third script is how the powerless or the oppressed people talk amongst themselves. So every so often, when the rich and the poor people are talking, the poor person is going to have to lie, right? Just to protect themselves. I can't be fully honest about this, or I might get punished. Now, the rich people, over time, start to realize that they feel like they're being lied to, okay? And the poor people, you got to bite your tongue. Ugh. And you know that feeling where someone's like mistreated you and you can't just like mistreat them back or leave the situation because they've got power over you. It's like a pressure almost in your chest. And so when powerless or oppressed people talk to each other, there's a lot of venting that goes on, right? There's also a long, long list of things that the oppressed people tend to do to try to get back, right? So if you've ever had a job and you were kind of doing fine at the job and things were okay, but then your boss started being a jerk, that's when you start thinking like, maybe I should like get them back. Maybe I should like steal little things in ways that they can't spot, right? If you felt something like that, like, oh, maybe I should do a bad job. Like maybe I should stop caring so much about this job. You see that kind of across the whole economy right now with people being like, why are we working so hard? They're treating us badly and trying to pay us as little as possible. What you then get is the rich people see this and they're like, they're lying and they're like stealing and I think they're doing a bad job and they're like not showing up to work sometimes and they're like feigning ignorance and dragging their feet and stuff. There's a long, long list of things that our ancestors did to screw with their landlords and bosses and masters. But the rich people, well, remember that they often justify their success by saying they were chosen by God. And so they start to look at the poor people and they're like, they're stealing and lying. And that must just be the way that they are. And that's why they're not rich, right? They're justifying their power position and including all of those little acts of retribution as justification for why they're just better. Even though they're not, they've just got the power. They see the people without power acting badly and say, well, I have power because I'm good and I'm not like that. And they don't have power because they're just predisposed, maybe genetically or maybe because of God or whatever. They're just predisposed to that kind of like awful, stupid, manipulative, like criminal behavior. And that's why they're not rich. So that is a huge part of the reason why rich people think they're better than everyone else. And I think it's just useful to know that.